this type of American step dancing, the umbrella term that we use is percussive dance. And I didn't own tap shoes until I started teaming up with Kevin. I wanted to be almost as loud as him. Before that, I used leather-soled shoes. When you think of the evolutions of any art forms, you think about people's environments. Percussive dance evolved in societies where people wore shoes and lived and worked on floors. So when I first started learning to dance, I was in my late 20s, and I had gone to Eastern Kentucky and I learned to flat foot. I learned 3 primary steps which comprise a whole dance form. This is called the buck step, or the 2-sounded walking step. And I love the term walking step. You know, you look like you're sort of walking, and you're not getting anywhere. I also learned the chug that year, which visually is the same as a slave step, West African movement, but it has the European and British Isles percussion in it now. And I learned this one, which is thought to come from Cherokee ceremonial dance. People call it the Indian. And I've been told by Native American dancers that this rhythm, hi-ya, 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 only exists in Hollywood. So I learned to do this dance style, and when we were at festivals and at jam sessions, I would just get out. I would even bring a board with me, a small board, and just vary it, improvise it as I went along. And then I really started to get the bug for the dancing. And as Elwood and I would travel around the United States, Canada, and the UK, we would meet dancers who would show me steps. And for example, in Louisville, Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky, 2 dancers showed me not only the 2-sounded walking step, but the 3-sounded walking step. And eventually, the 4-sounded walking step, which is called the Tennessee walking step. Thank you, and that, you could say, is the time step around which the entire dance form that I do revolves. So one year I was in Wisconsin at a festival, and I met a dancer from Indiana, and we're very similar in our style of dance. She said, you know, if you take out elements of that Tennessee walking step, a toe here, a heel there, you'll make your feet really talk. The old timers would call it talking feet. So I'll take out my right toe sound. Take out my left heel. Take out my right heel. And it's getting sparse again. Back to that 2-sounded step. Take out my left toe. Until the Lone Ranger rides in. Thank you, I love you. There are other things you can do too. Like I'm still doing the Tennessee walking step. I'm going to substitute the right side sounds for a shuffle. Whoops. And something called a scuffle, named by a dancer in Columbia, Missouri. Making 3 sounds instead of 2 with that shuffle. So every step I do has a story. Where I learned it, who I learned it from. I learned the scissors in Arkansas. And the silent scissors. The Applejack in North Carolina. That slide in North Carolina also, that Kevin and I did. In Dahlonega, Georgia, in the mountains, some kids showed me another slide. Gallop in Pennsylvania. The gallop with an extra toe in Arkansas. So sometimes it would be old timers that would teach me these steps. Sometimes it would be little kids and everybody in between. In Ozark of Arkansas, in the Ozarks, they call it jig dancing, and it's very vigorous. One time on the Ozark Folk Center stage, I saw this one guy dancing in particular. He was a beautiful tall man. He was 11 feet tall. And he weighed 8 pounds. And that's the first time I ever saw the wheel. Fred Astaire said, not to me personally, always do everything equally on both sides of the body. So I practice the left wheel a lot more, because I'm a very right-footed dancer. And I also can do both at once, I just don't really feel like it right now. So one of the reasons I talk and dance is because I'm the only practitioner of this dance form in the vast state of Rhode Island. And I found people didn't know the difference between this and tap dance. Or Irish step dance. Now I'm going to show you up. That's the only step I know. But you can tell the difference right away. The more rigid upper body position, and both those dance forms are on the toes. So one other dance form that I've been exposed to is Canadian, like the Prince Edward Island pitter-patter. Again, more on the toes style of dancing. The Cape Breton broken ankle, a little scary. So there's a lot of different wonderful kinds of step dance. English clogging. I spent a lot of years practicing on my own as I was developing this dance form. There are not actually a lot of people left in the United States that do the highly percussive form of freestyle clogging. Some people call it buck dancing. So I spent many, many hours and years working on it. When we lived on our farm, I would practice in the barn. Typical New England scene, an old red farmhouse and a barn across the street. Very rural road. Sometimes cars wouldn't go by for quite a while. And I would practice in there, in my own little midweek, introverted, artistic world. And one time, I think it was February, the doors were closed to the barn and I was inside concentrating. See how fast I could go. And I stopped and I heard this on the road.